During the family vacation, my son-in-law told me, "We're changing the locks when we get back. You won't be welcome." He took my keys and tossed them in the lake. My daughter laughed while my heart sank. I said calmly, "You'll regret that decision when you see what's coming." I'm a 63-year-old woman, widowed for over a decade. I had one child, Rachel, and I thought we were close. I really believed that. I raised her on my own after her dad died of cancer. I worked 2 jobs to get her through school, skipped meals some weeks so she could go on field trips or have dance shoes or yearbooks. I didn't complain. That's what mothers do. Or at least that's what I did. She met Mark in college. I wasn't thrilled from the start. He always had this way of talking to people like he was smarter than them, like everyone was just a little beneath him. He never said thank you when I helped. Never offered to pitch in around the house when he stayed for holidays. But Rachel was in love, and I wanted her to be happy. They got married. I paid for half the wedding. I didn't have much, but I took out of my savings to make sure she had a day she'd remember. After the wedding, they moved into a 2-story house in Albany, and when their first child came along, I helped where I could. I'd drive an hour each way just to babysit while Rachel finished her nursing degree. When the second child arrived, things got tighter for them, financially. And then COVID hit. Mark lost his job. Rachel was working long shifts at the hospital. The stress started showing. That's when I offered to move in. I had just sold my house, small place in Troy, and instead of renting something new, I suggested I could stay with them, help with the kids, cook, cover some expenses. They agreed. At the time, I thought I was doing a good thing. A family helping each other. But things shifted slowly. At first, it was small stuff. Mark acting irritated when I sat in the living room watching my shows, or rolling his eyes when I made suggestions about the kids. Rachel stopped talking to me like a daughter. I was just mom when she needed me, and invisible when she didn't. I kept brushing it off. Told myself it was the stress, the times. I stayed out of their way. I cleaned up after myself. I cooked dinner almost every night. I paid for groceries more often than not. I even paid the electric and internet bills for months. Then came the trip. It was supposed to be a summer getaway, just us, the kids, and the lake. We rented a house on Lake George. I offered to pay part of the rental, but Mark said they had it covered. I should have known something was off. The air felt tight from day one. They barely spoke to me the entire drive up. When we got there, Rachel handed me a list of chores. Watch the kids, cook meals, keep the place clean. I wasn't really a guest. I was the unpaid help. I did what I always do. I stayed quiet and kept the peace. Until that night. It was the 3rd night. We had just finished dinner. The kids were toasting marshmallows at the fire pit. Rachel was scrolling on her phone. Mark was having a beer. I handed him another one, trying to be polite. And that's when he turned to me and said it. "We're changing the locks when we get back. You won't be welcome." I thought I misheard. I stood there for a second, stunned. "What?" I asked. He looked me dead in the eye. No anger, no shame. Just cold. "You've overstayed your welcome. We want our home back. It's time." Then he reached into my jacket pocket, don't ask me how he even knew my keys were there, and pulled out my house keys. Without even hesitating, he tossed them straight into the lake. Rachel laughed. That's what killed me. Not a nervous laugh. Not a shocked one. It was a real laugh. Like it was funny. "You'll land on your feet, Mom," she said, sipping her wine. "You always do." I didn't speak for a moment. I couldn't. I felt this cold wave roll over me. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was just hollow. Then I looked at both of them. Looked them right in the face and said calmly, "You'll regret that decision when you see what's coming." Mark snorted. Rachel didn't even look up from her wine. They thought I was done. That they had control. That I'd just fade away quietly and accept what they did. They were wrong. The ride home from Lake George was silent. I sat in the back with the kids. Rachel and Mark didn't say a word to me. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just stared out the window, thinking. They didn't know I'd already been planning to move my money. A few months back, Mark tried to convince me to let him manage the little savings I had left, what was left from my house sale, a few CDs, and some pension. Said he could grow it for me. I refused, of course. After that, he got colder. Now I knew why. Back home, they didn't speak to me for 2 days. I stayed in my room, packed slowly, carefully. I overheard Mark on the phone with a locksmith. Rachel told her friend she couldn't wait to have her space back. Not a word to me. Then, without warning, I came back from a walk and found my things, 2 boxes and a suitcase, sitting on the front porch. Mark was standing in the doorway, arms crossed. "You've got until the end of the day," he said. "We already changed the locks." Rachel didn't come out. Didn't say goodbye. Nothing. I called a cab, got a room at a cheap motel on the edge of town, slept on a lumpy mattress with no AC, listening to the highway outside. And I sat there night after night, replaying it all in my head. I was angry, but more than that, I was focused. They thought I had nothing. But I had one thing they didn't know about, a joint savings account I had opened with Rachel years ago when she was in college. I'd meant to teach her about money management back when she was younger and actually listened to me. I kept it alive over the years, barely touched. My name was still on it. She never bothered to take it off. I checked. She'd been using it, probably thought I forgot it existed. Direct deposit from her side gig, a little money flowing in and out. That was mistake number 1. Then I called a friend of mine, Donna, who worked in real estate. Told her I needed a small apartment. Quiet. No fuss. She found me a place within a week, a basement unit out in Scroon Lake. It wasn't much, but it was clean and private. And it gave me a chance to think. Meanwhile, I started gathering everything, receipts, emails, texts. I had proof that I'd paid thousands into their bills, utilities, groceries, school supplies. I even had emails showing I covered 2 months of their mortgage during COVID. I wasn't on the deed, but I was going to make sure a court saw the truth. They didn't want to do things nicely? Fine. I'd go through the system. But I wasn't done with just legal steps. I also started talking to their neighbors, to old friends, even to Rachel's coworkers who knew me from hospital visits. Inevalit. I just told the truth about what happened, about how I helped them, how I got tossed out with no warning. I didn't have to embellish it. People were horrified. Word spread. Rachel's boss asked her about it. She denied it, of course. Said I had dementia, that I was confused. But people remembered me. They knew the truth didn't match what she was saying. That's when the cracks started to show. Rachel's friends stopped inviting her out. Mark's brother called me, apologized for how they treated me, said he was ashamed. I didn't ask him to do anything. I just listened. Then the real twist happened. A letter from the IRS. Someone had reported Mark for unclaimed income from a freelance project he bragged about on Facebook. I didn't send it, but someone did. And I started to feel something I hadn't felt in weeks. Control. They thought I was weak. Thought they'd throw me away. But I wasn't done. Not even close. About 3 weeks into staying at the basement apartment, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, is this Mrs. Ellis?" the woman said. Her voice was tense, professional. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Janine from Child Protective Services. We received an anonymous report about possible neglect or emotional mistreatment in the household of Rachel and Mark Ellis. We'd like to ask you a few questions, if that's all right." I sat up straight. I hadn't made that call, but someone had. I didn't want to hurt the kids. They were the only innocent ones in all this. But I told the truth. I told Janine that I had lived in that home for over 3 years. That I had seen the kids left alone more times than I was comfortable with. That Rachel sometimes came home too exhausted to even look at them. That Mark had a temper and yelled more than he should. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't have to. CPS did a home visit the next day. I didn't hear everything, but I got a text from one of Rachel's old nursing friends who still checked in with me. "What the hell is going on over there?" CPS showed up at Rachel's house, and Mark lost his mind on the front lawn. She's freaking out. It got worse for them. Rachel's hospital put her on leave while they reviewed her behavior. Apparently, word had spread there too, not from me, but through the same quiet network of people who actually respected me. Nurses talk. Admins listen when a story gets loud enough. Then came the bank call. I got a fraud alert about the joint account I had with Rachel. Someone had tried to transfer nearly $9,000 to a new account under Mark's name. I froze it immediately and called the bank. When I showed up in person with the account documents and proof I'd been the original owner, they didn't question me. Instead, they flagged the activity and started an internal review. Rachel called me that night. First time I'd heard her voice since the lake. "How dare you," she hissed. "You're destroying our lives." "No," I said calmly. "You did that when you threw me out like garbage. You're my mother, and you're not my daughter anymore." She hung up. The next day, I received a cease and desist letter in the mail. Some cheap lawyer trying to scare me into silence. I laughed. They had no case, and I wasn't breaking any laws. I wasn't stalking them. I wasn't spreading lies. I was just telling people what really happened and letting them act how they wanted. A week later, I heard Mark was out of work again. His freelance clients dropped him. His name had become toxic. Someone had posted screenshots of his social media where he bragged about kicking the old hag out and finally taking back his house. He forgot that the internet remembers everything. And then came the final twist that even I didn't see coming. My late husband's old union pension had been stuck in probate for years. I figured I'd never see a dime of it. But I got a letter from a law office. Apparently, a settlement had gone through, and as the surviving spouse, I was entitled to a lump sum payout. Nearly $38,000. I stared at the check for a long time. It wasn't just money. It was a weapon, a shield, a new beginning. They had thrown me away thinking I had nothing left. But now I had power. I had truth. I had people on my side. And I had a plan. I didn't cash the check right away. I just let it sit in a drawer while I thought. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about how I used it. I kept hearing things from people who still talked to Rachel or worked with her. She had been called in for a second disciplinary meeting at the hospital after they found out she'd accessed patient records without permission, likely looking for dirt on whoever reported her. They put her on a final warning. Mark had picked up a part-time warehouse job, a big step down from what he used to brag about. He was also doing deliveries in the evenings. They were scrambling. I wasn't happy about how it might affect the kids, but I also knew Rachel and Mark had built this hole themselves. I wasn't going to jump in and save them again. I started using the pension money quietly. First, I hired a lawyer, someone good, someone who didn't flinch when I laid everything out. I gave her a binder. Receipts, screenshots, emails, text threads. Proof I had contributed thousands over the years. I wasn't looking to bankrupt them. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted them to see, in black and white, that they had no right to what they took from me. The lawyer filed a small claims case. It wouldn't give me my keys back, but it would give me a record. Something public. Something real. Rachel was served at work. Mark got his notice at home. That same week, I used part of the money to rent a billboard just outside of Albany, one of those old roadside ones off I-87. I paid for 1 month. The message was simple. White background. Black bold letters. She gave them everything. They threw her out like trash. Some people don't deserve second chances. No names. No photos. Just a message. It went viral. Someone snapped a photo and posted it to Reddit. Then Facebook. People started guessing, speculating, sharing stories. The comments weren't kind. One of Rachel's coworkers messaged me privately. She's melting down, blaming everyone. She knows it's about her. But I still didn't respond. Not to Rachel. Not to Mark. I kept quiet. Let the silence burn them. Then I reached out to a journalist, someone who had done a local piece a few years ago about elder abuse and financial manipulation. I told her everything. Gave her proof. She asked if I wanted to go on record. I said yes. The story came out a week later. Thrown out by her own daughter. A retired mother's fight for justice. It ran in the Times-Union and got picked up by a few other regional outlets. The reporter kept it professional, but the tone was clear. Rachel and Mark looked like monsters. And best of all, it was all true. Rachel finally cracked. I got another call from her, this time in tears. Mom, please stop. You've made your point. Just stop. I stayed silent for a beat. I stopped being your mother the day you stood there and laughed. Please, the kids miss you. You should have thought of that before you treated me like a stranger. She tried to keep talking, but I hung up. Let her feel what I felt. Let the silence settle in. And I still wasn't done. The court hearing was quiet, small. Just me, Rachel, Mark, their lawyer, and mine. No jury. Just a judge reviewing the documentation. Rachel wouldn't look at me. Mark tried to act confident at first, but when the judge started reading off the list of my contributions, $2, $300 in electric bills, $1,700 in groceries, 2 full mortgage payments during COVID, plus proof I'd bought the kids' clothes, school supplies, and medical copays, his face tightened. My lawyer showed the joint account activity Rachel had been using without informing me. She pointed out that while I was living there, I paid more than my share. The judge asked one question. Why did you remove her from the home without notice or a legal process, especially after she supported your family during a pandemic? Rachel tried to cry, said I was unstable. Mark said it was a misunderstanding. The judge wasn't moved. I didn't win a fortune. That wasn't the point. But the judge ordered them to repay me $14,827 over 12 months. It went on public record. It made them legally responsible for how they treated me. And it gave me closure. But the real revenge wasn't in the money. It was in the slow unraveling of their world. Rachel was formally let go from her hospital job 2 weeks later. She violated their privacy policies, tried to twist the narrative, but the damage was done. Mark was still bouncing between warehouse shifts and late-night food deliveries. Their reputation was dirt. Neighbors stopped waving. Friends stopped calling. Their kids, my grandkids, weren't allowed to talk to me anymore. That was the only part that truly hurt. But I didn't push. I knew one day they'd grow up, ask questions, and I'd be here with the truth when that time came. And me? I cashed that pension check and bought a small condo near Scroon Lake. Quiet, peaceful. I started volunteering at a local shelter, cooked meals for women who'd also been pushed out by people they trusted. I told my story to those who needed to hear it. And every morning, I'd sit on my little porch with my coffee and know I didn't let them bury me. They threw me out, but I didn't disappear. I made sure they remembered me. Every day. Forever.